Right, here I am, the first time in just ages, and I can feel how long it is just because it seems so weird. So, yeah, this is me. I got some stuff, as per usual, to say that's ready, but I just wanted to silence my phone. That's what I wanted to do, because obviously I've forgotten how to do stuff properly. But yeah, I want to on this computer to stop hating me. Other than that, I want to read a very brief-ish. Sorry. Turns out there's two phones. Okay, let me silence that one as well. Then pull myself together and wonder why I'm doing the stream at this time of night. Oh yeah. Reasons. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to read this Bible verse first. I would say if it's the last thing I'll do, but you never know. The way today has been, it could be. So, but now Yahweh, who created you, Jacob, and he who formed you, Israel, says, do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they will not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, and flame will not scorch you, for I am Yahweh, your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Saviour. I have given Egypt as your ransom, Ethiopia and Seba in your place. Since you have been precious and honoured in my sight, and I have loved you, therefore I will give people in your place and nations instead of your life. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bring your offspring from the east and gather you from the west. I will tell the north, give them up, and tell the south, don't hold them back. Bring my sons from far away and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Everyone who is called by my name and whom I have created for my glory, whom I have formed, yes, whom I have made. Bring out the blind people who have eyes, and the deaf who have ears. Let all the nations be gathered together, and let the peoples be assembled. Who among them can declare this? Show us former things. Let them bring their witnesses, that they may be justified, or let them hear and say, that is true. You are my witnesses, says Yahweh, with my servant whom I have chosen, and you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me there was no God formed, neither will there be after me. I myself am Yahweh. Besides me there is no Saviour. I have declared, I have saved, and I have shown, and there was no strange God among you. Therefore you are my witnesses, says Yahweh, and I am God. Yes, since the day was, I am he. There is no one who can deliver out of my hand. I will work, and who can hinder it? So that's that. I just love it. I just thought I'd throw it in just for the sake of it, really. Right, Steve? So, what you feel? It's like the old days, isn't it? So there was something. What a day I've had. I just got to quickly give you the tiny little rundown. I spent the most part of the day with somebody who has forgotten me, like many times. They've got dementia, and it's really difficult, especially in their moments of clarity. And yeah, that's that. And then I spent the rest of the evening with someone who wishes they could forget me, and that's also really hurtful. So I'm just loving life at the minute. And I thought to myself, what better way to torture myself and others than so this is something that I was thinking of sharing like a while ago. That's all right, Bill. Hi. And it's about, I guess broadly, it's the distinction between kindness and niceness. I'll show you what it's about. I'll just tell you. Since I remember how to do notes and make them big enough for, okay, which if I start squinting, you will know why. But I can't see the chat. All right, let's just sort out my pooter. Okay, so now I have to, shoot and shucks the Rooney. No, I'm going to have to keep scooting. Anyway, this is all going swimmingly. Thanks for asking. Help. Okay. I feel like most of, the intro to my notes, what I'm going to say I hope it doesn't come as a shock to anybody. And if it does, like where you've been, I know, Jordan, sorry. Okay. So everybody, whether they display it or choose, seek to conceal it, has a deep, abiding need to belong. And also, because of that, or alongside that, a need to be loyal. And conversely to the need to be loyal is like I don't know about innate sense, but you find it in young children, like a sense of betrayal, knowing what that is, and knowing, maybe you can't verbalize why it's wrong, but knowing that it's not right. So when that loyalty, like I've often considered, like disloyalty is something I find distasteful anyway, but when the loyalty that we're speaking of, this theoretical loyalty, I guess, is somehow insulted, and at its core, it will be because you didn't feel that you got the love, maybe respect, but it all boils down to love, that you needed. When that happens, I don't know about will, but it's very possible to become consumed with being liked, wanting others to like us. And then most likely, if you've got a couple of brain cells floating about that you don't need at that moment, you'll become very nice and very likable. It can take different forms. You may become overly helpful, like you just may be that person that everybody turns to. And this is the bit you might not that might not readily spring to your mind. Hello, everyone. Is that it's a coping pattern. It's a coping mechanism. And obviously, I'm not saying that you can't be authentically or genuinely nice. It's nice to be nice. I love a bit of niceness. It's not, maybe I'm using it as a coping strategy. We may find out. Either way, genuinely nice, genuinely supportive of other people. You can do these things. This is the kicker. And I am looking at you ladies probably. You can still look after your own needs whilst you are, making huge efforts, moving mountains, etc., to accommodate the needs of others, because it's nice to do it. So human nature. Lots of people, conversely, I'm laughing at Jordan, are nice. It's the same niceness, the same likability, the same helpfulness, but the method is different in that they do it by suppressing their own needs. That's a coping mechanism right there, if you want to ID it. And everybody says, oh my gosh, aren't they nice? Oh, so nice. Oh, isn't it lovely? And, maybe when they get to I don't know, 50, my granny was 54 when she died of cancer. But when they say they get to 50, die of cancer, everyone shows up at the funeral. Everybody cries. Everybody, to a man, says how nice they were, how selfless, do anything for you, give you the shirt off their back, always there with a cup of tea, and whatever it is for the person, the imaginary person we're thinking of. And you may remember when I spoke about attachment before, and the small, the childlike self that's in us that needs to be loved and doesn't cope very well with, you know, the world or grown up stuff, or like lol, I haven't yet met anyone with this, but like mature emotional like capabilities and all that theoretical stuff. This child, any child, a real child, has two needs, like two basic needs, and these are for attachment, which is obvious, like the function of it is obvious, but it's the seeking of closeness, like connection, familiarity, safety with another human being. Obviously, this is in most instances primarily the mother or like primary caregiver. So like the heart, like at its core, basically the attachment, like the dynamics of attachment that develop and stay with us forever and ever after, but they develop in our early childhood. It is the most, I'm just talking human, obviously not supernatural, but it's the most powerful dynamic there is. It's inculcated into our intrinsic, like the way we make sense of the world, the way we relate to other people throughout our lives, like I say. So it's pretty, like, it has far-reaching ramifications, let's put it that way. And it's like foundational level, its basic purpose is protection, safeguarding, nurturing of the child, the baby, the younger human, like in the dynamic, in order for them to receive I don't know, like to form attachment, like to attach to their parents, and or conversely, like very importantly, and sometimes like postnatal depression, etc., can like just throw this off balance slightly, for the parents to attach to the infant also, because that's massively important in terms of like sustaining, humans. And it's, of course, the purpose is for the baby, infant, child to be taken care of and have an adult to take care of them. So, in a nutshell, that's attachment. I mean, there are different styles, certainly, and each of them has their own like challenges, and people have differing attachment styles. You know, it can be challenging, it can be rewarding to be like attached to somebody who has a completely different style of doing things, and spend a fair part of your time wondering if you're actually mental, that sort of thing. So anyway, we're wired for attachment. All right, oh my God, we're wired for attachment all of our lives. It don't, the strong silent types and all that, just deep down somewhere they have a need for an attachment. I mean, it's like it's possible to become a hermit and live up a pole or something. Either way, for the vast majority, I don't know about sociopaths. We're not going to stray off. What I'm going to do is stick to the point, make it snazzy, lol, snappy even. It ain't nothing. Attachment. I have an attachment clearly to you people. Anyway, most important dynamic that there is. We're all wired for it. We're all like programmed for it. It's a function, like it keeps us all going. If you didn't attach to a baby and you suffered like postpartum or something, you could, walk away, let it get on with it. Right. Because we're wired for it, because it's essential, like it's essential for, like I said, there's different styles, but as a human function, is essential. And sometimes the needs that we have, the attachment needs, are sent in like different directions, and when they are, that will just trump everything. Like that child is not going to hear no. Like, it's not even, that's not even on the table. Like, if the tantrum's coming, it's coming. And if you need to be loved right there and then, you need it. And like, you know, like, it's not a rational thing. It's just a reaction. Kicker, because I don't have any control over it. So, right. That's one need anyway that we have. Without attachment, if you extrapolate outwards, there are no more humans. Like, if human adults didn't attach to each other in some fashion and decide to make little babies, etc., that's your lot. It's impossible without it. I mean, there could be another scheme. God could have ordered it a different way, but he didn't. And communities are formed like with attachments, and families and creativity, and like, just as a process, we wouldn't have even got to this point to be able to study or to look at it, or for me to sit here waffling about it. And the whole, you know, we portray ourselves as like cutthroat and you know, like maybe competitive to the point of, you know, aggression and I'm a white jack, that kind of thing. But it's not the case, like on an individual deep down level. The other need, because I mentioned too, if you remember, is authenticity. And we need that. And when we don't have it, it causes us like discomfort, some cognitive dissonance, some like trying to hold two somewhat opposing ideals or views of yourself in balance. And obviously it will cause strain. Like, that's not really like a survival thing. That is actually, yeah, I feel like it probably is now. I just said that. So, because if you're not able to access your own authentic self, like if you haven't found yourself, that sounds so like wishy-washy, but if you are not in touch with the part of yourself that is you, like, because you've obviously got your ego, which is always demanding, you've got your like identity, and then you like, which is, I don't know, temperament, and you've got your super ego, which is like moralizing most of the time and looking down on the other two. But it keeps you in check if it's got much of a voice in your head. Either way, if you're out in the wild, if you're not in civilization, as it were, you won't survive if you're not in touch with your authentic self. So these two things, like now, these new two things, authenticity, integrity, I guess you could call it, and being in touch and being able to hear that voice, as it were, or like connect with that part of yourself. If you were out without, you know, civilization, you wouldn't survive, depending on which, like, out in the wild you were. So it's being in touch with yourself. It's being able to act on your awareness of threats and danger. Like, I'm still in this, like, I don't know, Wild West scenario in my head, I guess, like the outback somewhere. Yeah, and your environment to be able to react appropriately, so that, you know, like, you get the feeling of, oh, I need to be present for that. I need to keep an eye on that. And then obviously, if you don't do that, you're in danger and you don't even know it. If a child, though, is receives these messages, as it were, like, I mean, unspoken messages, that if I am authentic, if I'm, you know, they're a child, so that they're not thinking it literally, but if they are authentic, if we see that, oh, when I am authentic and I like express myself and I speak about my feelings, and then, you know, sadly, like the parents, the adults don't cope with it very well, or, you know, they may be, I don't know, they may be depressed, they may be stressed out, they may be, they may have had, you know, traumatic childhoods themselves, like. But what will happen to the child? Because the child doesn't rationalize any of that, but they will suppress their authenticity. And of course, like, if I said it in another, like, they will try to become more likable if they're reaction they receive is hostile or negative or just emotionally absent, which depression can cause that, yeah, they'll just suppress it. And they'll suppress any, like, you know, I don't know. So the suppression of gut feelings and authenticity is in itself a coping mechanism. Again, it's all about coping. Everyone, like, it's nice to think like, oh, I can handle this, I'm like, but it's always about, like, it can come across as selfish, obviously, if you haven't gone past that in the hierarchy of needs, you know, like, because different people in different roles, you know, in different society, whatever, they're brought up with different expectations on them. But certainly women, and I know what a woman is, but don't get me started. It's yeah, it's a common occurrence, this thing, but also with men, just as, I don't know about just as much, but it's equally understandable when it happens. And now we find that the child is no longer in touch with their own needs, because of the overwhelming drive is for attachment, is to feel secure, is to be, you know, whatever, loved and fed and clothed and protected from the outside world and danger, and, you know, whatever it is that we do for children. I don't like, obviously, cuddles and stuff, but it's not really in this scenario. So now, as they get older, or like if we person, like now, we are not, in this case, paying any attention to our own feelings or our own emotions, or they have massively negative connotations, when actually it could be as small as, you know, like just wanting a bit of affirmation, or just, I don't know, like needing something seemingly small, can be now blown out of all proportion because we're not in touch with our we just know that, oh, we feel hurt, but we don't really, yeah, we've developed these coping mechanisms of detaching from our feelings, because let's be real. Well, for me personally, anyway, feelings are like, I'd rather not be, if it's all the same to you. I'd rather, I don't know, rather be eating a cake, or so no. All right, Miss Brown. Right, please don't distract everyone, Miss Brown. I'm not talking about no religion, nothing like that. Either way, you're no longer aware now of your feelings, so you don't express them. So now you don't know, or you won't know what you need, which now has even bigger ramifications and implications for adulthood, certainly. And maybe you love one of these tards. No, I'm joking. This is all of us, if it's the case. One like indicator, it's not a definite, but one enhanced characteristic, I guess, of children, like with this, you know, with this process going on, is that they'll be compulsive, or they'll appear to be, they'll be compulsive, and then may develop compulsively serving the needs of others and ignoring their own, because of course they're replaying. You're right, John. Another admin's going to have to sort of like to, come on, oh my God, what's happening? Oh, I've clicked off my notes. Either way, compulsively serving us. See, when I say like serving others, it sounds really good, but we're not talking about niceness or kindness whilst looking after our own needs, because in this scenario, we ain't got a clue what they are anyway. But we definitely feel like we know what everyone else needs, which is like affection and, you know, I don't know, just being all right. So compulsivity, compulsion, even compulsively, like trying to serve others, because you get to feel like a nice person and you get to ignore your own shizzle. Or another option, or like a combination, I guess, sometimes, is that we may develop all kinds of false needs. And that is really the root, like the stem, I guess, of addiction, in as much as we, like some people have, like it's viewed in different ways, like even just within psychology, but like, addiction at its core is a need of something that gives us something else, often, the most common is it gives us time to not have to be in our own, like sit in our own skin, like don't have to spend time with myself, because you can change the way you feel by gambling or pornography or drugs or, I don't know, compulsive housework or whatever it is. Addiction doesn't, like, that's a bit of a, a misapprehension, is it has to be a drug or a drink or something. Like, it doesn't have to be that at all. It's just any compulsive behavior that changes the way you feel, even if it's for the worst, to be fair, because a lot of the people I see who have got substance stuff, they don't look like they're having a very good time. Or if they are, they're keeping it really quiet. So yeah, you get these false needs. And that's that. That's like, there's manifested at this point something that's at least seemingly like it can't be resolved. It's I can't think of the word that I want. There's a tension between the attachment and the need for authenticity that, yeah, like when faced with it, it results in like just self-suppression. Like you just you hide in yourself. Like if that, you hide away the part of yourself that needed the attachment in the first place, that's vulnerable in any way. You know what I mean? Like you just think, like you just obsess outwards so you don't have to look inwards. One of the potentialities for this, not the only like possible outcome, but it is a possibility, is that niceness becomes your coping mechanism. And I mean, it sounds all right, doesn't it? I'm like, so far, oh, you get to be nice a lot. Like, oh, aren't they nice? Like I said, but as with all coping mechanisms, they can be rinsed. Hang on, how do I say that for people who don't live in London? They can be, for sake, even worse. Yeah, they can be smashed. They can be overused, and they will become. They are detrimental because you're denying yourself. I'm not like talking the opposite of hedonism. I'm not saying like it's all about you, because it definitely ain't. Because it ain't all about me. So it can't be all about any of us. It's got to be about Jesus, obviously. However, when you are like, how do we know when we're being yourself on paper? Oh my God. How do we know when we're being inauthentic? Like, how do we know? When we're children, on some level, at the beginning at least, when it begins to be a thing that we realise our needs are not being met, and it can be anything. It can be your parent could have been bereaved. Your parent could have, suffered with depression or alcoholism, or just wasn't taught. Like, everyone as a parent, I'm telling you now, you're just winging it. So I used to have these massive, like with my own mum, I used to go, when I was a teenager, I spent some absolutely stellar moments judging her and thinking, rah, rah, rah. And then when you become a parent, you're like, oh, I think I might have missed the meeting. No one told me how to do it. Like, what? What am I supposed to? Everyone. I'm still pretending to be a grown-up, let alone parent. Like, you learn as you go along if you're lucky. And otherwise you do your best with what you've got. That's what I'm trying to say. And when I realised that my mum had done the absolute best with what she had to work with, I don't mean me, I mean of herself, like, yeah, it's a freeing realisation, because you don't have these impossible standards that you can't keep, but you're putting them on others. And it's hurtful when you think, you know what I mean? Like, your mum didn't do this for you, or you couldn't, but you're not thinking couldn't, you're thinking didn't willfully, just didn't give us whatever. Right. Why do I do these psychological ones? Okay. So on a level, when we're kids, some level, we already know when we are betraying our authentic selves, and we're being less than ourselves with others. How do we know? Like, how? There's something inside us that It's like a yardstick, like a measuring. Is Armour of God in? Can you okay the live chat any time you love? Right, either way, there is something in like intuitive is what I'm trying to look for. That for many people, I should say. Because the authentic self, it's not that it goes away, it don't disappear. It doesn't cease to be there and doing like it's just that we're not in touch with it. So we may be as surprised as anyone else, when stuff goes down in Chinatown, as it were. I don't know why China got involved. I say that a lot anyway in real life. Right, come on, Kay. We're not in touch with it. Because of that, on some subconscious almost level, there is a shame and a guilt. And those are like emotions that are easy peasy. It feels like, oh, I can't bear this feeling, but you can. You'll do it again anyway. But you can, because the alternative is horrific. Like the being in touch with your authentic. It's like, I guess it's like the reason I didn't try my hardest was, what if I try my hardest and I fail? Like that's the big scary thing. What if I put everything into it and it gets thrown back in my face? Or if I'm not good enough? That's far more horrific than living in guilt and shame. Guilt and shame is like, you might have a history with like being a Catholic. You might be professional. I'm really joking. Either way, this shame, I'm only making jokes about it because I identify it. Oh my God, you're chatting a lot, Rob. What is it? Who knows? I know what I need, dearest. Right, so back at the ranch. Shame. Internal suffering. Like it's not a jokey thing I'm talking about. I just feel silly. Betrayal is bad enough when other people do it to us, obviously, depending on how much we care or are attached to them. Although it can be quite liberating. If you find out they've betrayed you, half of that evaporates. You're just like, what a mug. Either way, that's a defense mechanism. We've got this knowledge that we're betraying ourselves. Self-betrayal is like, it's very easy. Going back to the first, like being nice as a coping, like it's easy to abandon yourself. It's so easy. Like you just focus on somebody else, especially people who've been parents. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like it's, yeah, you get to feel like a nice person because you're always caring for somebody else. But even though you do care, you're using it as a way to ignore yourself. So there is a unique kind of suffering that goes along with it, because the authentic self, like I say, it doesn't disappear. It may become quieter, may become like but it's there. It's there. Mostly in the middle of the night, I suppose. But I'm still thinking of childhood. So that feeling of suffering, of a sense of like, oh, why didn't I, like, how could I have, whatever the end of that sentence is for this imaginary child, that feeling is a guide, like a big flashing light, a little tiny flag or whatever, that we're not being ourselves. And it happens, obviously, a lot of people. We may get to look good for other people whilst we're being inordinately kind and caring and loving, and oh, she'll do it for you, oh, she's lovely, etc. And that is important that is important what other people think of us. But inside, we're suffering. We suffer shame because we know that we're not being true to ourselves. And we see, for many people who don't deal with it eventually, this inner, it just comes up, like you'll know deep down. And why, the reason for that is that, this inner, this quiet voice, as it were, it hasn't gone, it isn't dead. It's just neglected to the point of we don't feel right when we betray it. It's not about really betraying other people, because that's easy. If you're honest, it's easy. Just easy if nobody's looking, if it's you or them. Like it's easy enough, especially if you don't, you know, you're not particularly attached to them. Relationships, like as that with adult relationships, they may not now be the person that you fell in love with in the first place. You know what I mean? Because spoiler alert. Either way, yeah, we suffer, but because we push down any feeling, like then it brings up the cycle again. So we're more nice now because we're suffering more, and we want to feel. It just goes round and round. And it calls out to us, this little voice. Some people it doesn't happen, you know. Some people they won't hear that voice. It might take something life-changing. It may take a catastrophe. It may take like something dramatic for them to even realise that they were participating in that denial of themselves. So at one point, however it comes, this realisation, you know, if you don't hear it, as it were, I don't mean like auditory hallucinations, but if you don't connect with the fact that your own self is like maybe shouting at you, your body will let you know, and that will let you know like pretty loudly, because something will happen. A toll on your health will happen. And I was thinking it like the other night. It's totally unrelated. I wasn't thinking about the notes for this vid. I was just pondering how emotional pain is so easily translated into physical. You know, like if, I don't know, like somebody dies, or not even that dramatic, somebody like just really hurts our feelings or abandons us or whatever it is, or however we perceived it is the important thing. You can feel like you've been punched in the throat and someone's just said something. Like, and you can feel the like, or your heart just, when you're happy, your heart feels lighter. I can't explain, like bigger. But when your heart, like when you're distressed or whatever you want to call it, like sad and, you know, heartbroken, whatever, it feels heavy. Like you can actually feel it there. Like I've had times where I felt like there's a hole in my chest, like, or I've been kicked in the stomach. And that's just from words or memories even, or just the replaying of the words in my head, because I love a bit of that. Like on the internal cinema screen of my mind, just replaying the classics. Either way, if your brain ain't getting through to you, your body is like, I got this. Don't worry about it. So illness, really. Symptoms of illness. Yeah, and it's the rest of yourself, as it were, trying to get through to you. Because if it doesn't speak to you directly, or more like, I guess the other way, if you don't listen to it, it's going to manifest and like kick it, depression, anxiety, self-sabotage, like just fudging everything up, as it were, repeatedly. Depends how understanding the people around you are. But it will affect your personal relationships. And at that point, right, so now we're into adulthood, I guess. You know, it's easy to say, well, for one, I'm not in love with the right partner. Sodom. Like, it's all their fault anyway. They don't listen to me. They didn't listen. I told them not to do it. Something like that. And it's legitimately a cause, like a unfulfilled attachment, you know, like betrayal of ourselves is a reason why we betray others, because then we can replicate. So what we're always trying to do as adults, always, is in terms of like things that formed in early childhood, like relational stuff and attachment, is what we're trying to do is replay it with an adequate outcome. So you may think, why do women always do this to me? Like, wow, oh my gosh, it's like just statistically impossible percentages that this is going to happen to me again. But, newsflash, you cause it to happen. Like I said in the other video, I remember saying it, is that you adopt either the role of your own mother, maybe, or your father, depending. And then you seek out partners who will validate those things. And you'll push them away to either try to bring them back again or to get them to abandon you so that you can then work through the feelings of abandonment. It can come to the point where you're only, the most perfect people can be right in front of you and it's not your thing, because you would rather someone who is guaranteed to give you the problems that subconsciously you're seeking to resolve, like one time, done. What do you reckon the odds are? Without being in touch with the authentic self. Basically, you'll find maybe yourself thinking, how do I get here? Why are they all mental? Literally. Oh, I can't be doing with this one. I'm going to, whatever. I'm getting find another partner. And then you think, hang on, this one's mental as well. Like, is there a convention in town? Why are they all mental? If you go for mental, obviously. So maybe you start thinking, am I just really unlucky? Like, am I surrounded by donuts? I don't know. Yeah, bad luck. Then maybe you'll contemplate, like, maybe there's a pattern. Maybe you're the common denominator. I don't want to spoil the ending here, but you're involved in all of these scenarios. Either way, some difficulty. It could just be illness. You could be stuck with your husband forever. Sorry, I'm only joking. Some difficulty happens. And it shakes you out of this relaxed complacency, like the false belief. Things are just fine anyway. I ain't even bothered, bro. You don't even know there's nothing to be bothered because you're not in touch with your authentic, the little bit of you inside that's actually chatting sense. Lol, I vaguely remember one. Either way, I'm really joking. So, the most traumatic or difficult or challenging things that occur or happen to us are the most, oftentimes, I don't know about edifying, but eventually, because of Romans 8:28, they will be. And I thought this the other day as well. God, I'm like a little Hallmark card in my own brain. I was thinking that. Why was I thinking that? Why did I do the wash it up? But what I was thinking is, what was the words I thought it in? Tranquility, doesn't engender strength. It just doesn't. When everything's fine, when your life's just swimming along, everything's happy, those are not the times when you will develop an inner strength that God knows you need for something else. Because it's easy to say, God, why? In that voice, with that slightly demanding attitude as well. It's easy, because then you go, oh, sorry. But it's easy to be like, oh, mate, why am I in this really dramatic version of my own life again? Why, God, are you I've been praying, I've been really, trying, getting out of the way, Holy Spirit, all the jazz, doing the things I need to do, and yet happy days are here again, that sort of thing. You think, I know this thing tune. Hold on a minute. Someone's mental. Here's me. Think what? So you start questioning God. And what I realised is, because I do a fair bit of that, because of, I say a life, I say a personal life, but you get the gist. Adversity, struggles, hardship, pain, emotional bullshittery, there I said it, it causes us to become resilient or to crumble, or to give up and run away, whatever. But God, Corrie ten Boom used the analogy like you may, you're in a train, you're in the middle of a tunnel. Now the lights go off, and now you're stuck in the dark in a tunnel. Maybe you're claustrophobic. I don't know. You can't see anything. You don't know why am I in the dark. That's my theme tune, but that's the I need to know. But so why are you in the dark? Like, you know that God knows the plans for you. They're to prosper you. You know that you'll walk through the fire. You won't be scorched. You know that all things work to the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose. And yet, bro, you're sitting in the middle of a tunnel in the dark. Maybe you need to go to the loo. I don't know. There's some urgency here. You're like, yo, I'm stuck. I'm stuck again. And then, Miss Piggy, I'm nearly done, babes. It's good to see your little name and face. So you're in this tunnel again. How long is this bleeding tunnel is what I want to know. And why? This is a joke, but why does the light at the end of the tunnel always seem to be a train coming towards me? Back to the analogy of Corrie ten Boom. Yeah, you're in the dark. The train's broke down. Whatever. I can't really remember what she was saying properly. But if you imagine that God is the driver, say the architect of the tunnel, the reason He is bringing you through the darkness and maybe the loneliness and I don't understand what's happening with my life and the trauma, or the struggle's real, people. So you're getting dragged through that trauma and that struggle, but you need to keep your faith because obviously you're Christian. Like, you need to know that God has got something better for you, because chances are if you're a Christian like I am, you've got yourself into some dramas long ago. Maybe God still put it, like, even before, like, it's always with hindsight that I think, why was it, like, what was I mean, I know why I was getting distressed about something, because it was absolutely horrific, painful stuff, but it wasn't unnecessary. Like, in God's ineffable plan, it was necessary for me to be forged into the person that I am now, who's probably not the finished article, obviously. So then I have to go through some more struggles, and like, it's easy to think like, don't I deserve to be happy? Like, what is going on? Why is everything so dramatic just when I step in? But God is leading you through that darkness, because you can't get to the place where He wants you to be unless you go through it. And what's more, when you get off the train, you're a different person to the one who got on it. And if God needs you to hear something, there's no point telling you when you haven't got your listening ears on, as it were. So pain enables like growth, and sadly, complacency or happiness or familiarity, or those periods of our life that you would seek out. You'd think, oh, I'd love a bit of peace and quiet, but they don't forge great character in you. Like, and it's maybe not what we ain't got time to be sitting with our feet up. Like, Jesus might come back, but also our brothers and sisters are being chopped up left, right, and centre. I've digressed quite a bit here. Needless to say, I'm going to wrap it up anyway. The most difficult things that happen to us from God's perspective can be the greatest things that ever happened to us. Basically, I spoke like fundamentally, they are a part of us. The negative, perceived negative, whatever the very worst things that I've ever had to happen to me, and I'm not joking. There's some like zingers. Not ironically, because it's God doing it. They are the things that allow me to love other people who may also have had similar things happen, or to have a compassion that I would never, like, it got rid of my arrogance, some of the things for, certain kinds of people, because I found that I was just like that. And that's always an eye-opener. And if God needs you to be someone and needs you to be somewhere, you better just put your hand up and say, like, I'm here, I'll go, I'll do it. It's hard though, like, because when you're in the middle, every time you feel like God's gone away for a minute, you just nipped off to sort out maybe, I don't know, Nigeria. You're like I'm doing what you asked me, and I don't. Like, it's nice to have your hand held, but people who have their hands held a lot, maybe they don't develop this strength that God needs them to have. So the part of us, and I mean, obviously God dwells there, but just psychologically, the part of us that loves us more than anything else, like the preservative, like this authentic self, will see, problems and stumbling blocks, and and it will be saying, that's not the way, stop what you're doing, stop, whoa, that's not the way. And yeah, ironically, the stumbling blocks, the whatever it is that's in, you feel like it's in your way, is the thing that reroutes you, is the word I'm looking for. Like on a GPS, when I don't know, it brings us around to ourselves, because we're busy like focusing it outward and trying to be loved by an effort of will. Like, we're just nicey, whatever it is, pushing our own selves down. But once we have these difficulties that come up as a result of our, like, let's say, God's definitely sovereign, like, because you cause your own drama, as it were, free will, lust, anger, whatever it is. I'm really fussed at this time of the night. But then it causes you the difficulty that forces you into the path that brings you to where you're recognizing that, because God has brought you out of it, some changed person. And it's not always the obvious answer with God. Like, can I get an amen? Because if it was, I'd have it worked out right at the beginning, like an episode of Morse. I'd be like, yep, he done it. That's it. You'd see like the love of your life in the park coming along. You go, oh, no thanks, ciao. Like, because you know that's how God catches you, as it were. But I mean, I don't know. I do mind sometimes. Don't get me started. But I'm not God's advisor. I'm just his daughter. But I have some blinding advice sometimes, especially for my own stuff. I'm like, you can just do that, and then we're going to. Then he does it, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I'm not the one who's all knowing, apparently. Don't tell anyone. Right, either way, we get to look at our difficulties. They seem to evaporate. It's like when you're a kid, if you're afraid of the dark, like it's just a teensy little light switch, and all of the imagined horrors, it just melts away. And you're like, oh yeah, it's just my bedroom. Like, that shadow isn't actually blah blah blah. So I mean, we can look at these problems as things to get rid of. We can go down the denial, avoidance. Nope, I just want to get rid of it. I can't deal with it. It's all too much. Whatever. God's already put it in your life. What are you going to do? Or, it's preferable, you can look at it as teachability. You can always look at things with a new set of eyes. That's why talking to other people, can be helpful. Doesn't always have to be if you don't choose the right person and they just go, oh, he's talking about, pull yourself up. But the way I just set it forward, I guess the bigger the problem seems, the more insurmountable it seems, because we make it much more we pile on a few added catastrophes. But you're sitting there where you are, and I'm sitting there think of the hardest times ever in your life. Don't say earlier on today, please. I mean, you've come through them. And I guess I don't say that you're blessed with this, but please God, eventually you get to look back and say, well, I wouldn't have my life any other way, because I wouldn't have got to meet you people, or I wouldn't have been the kind of person who wanted to, defend Jesus and whatever it is, or, be happy without, ignoring, at the end of the day, so Jesus would have come and died for you if you were the only person here knocking about by yourself. Probably completely mental, like Tom Hanks in that film, but still, he would have done it, is my point. And if he loves you that much, like, who are you to, like, you better fall in line. You have to, it's lovely to be self-sacrificing, obviously, because Jesus is big in the self-sacrifice game. But he did it because people are what matter. People, even though they're so irritating and peoply sometimes, like if you think of it, Jesus didn't have anything as in terms of like worldly wealth or anything really. Like, he had to borrow a place to eat, and he had to say, go over there, there'd be a donkey there, and at the third window, tell the woman I said, whatever. Like, he wasn't, he didn't need to be a thief or anything. Like, I mean, like other people, he didn't need any big displays of wealth because he had, like, this. Come on, like, he has everything. He needs nothing. And yet, with that being said, he chose to, like, have his bones broken and be spat on and ridiculed and vilified and insulted and wrongly, accused. I mean, he was rightly accused of blasphemy technically, but he is God, so it's not blasphemy. But, avoidance, Jordan, please don't get me started. I don't want to avoid the question or anything, but I feel like somewhat of an expert because I have all this time while people are avoiding me. But, yeah. Either way, attachments. I'm going to end on this bit before I just have a little chit chat. A little chit chat. Our attachment styles, if we aren't conscious of them, and children, babes, we keep the chocolate industry going. It's our secret. Our attachment styles can affect our relationship with God ultimately, because if we develop a poor attachment into our dads, like the man who's in the house where we grew up, kind of thing, that guy, your dad, granddad, whoever brought you up, I don't know. That's your first conscious awareness of what a dad is. It's such a shame. Like, nobody's got a perfect dad, but if your dad is lacking in something, because most chance that he had something lacking in his childhood. Like I say, people don't go for 4 years training and all that to become a mother or a father. They just, it's nice to think that you give more than you received as a child, because then obviously the world gets better and better. But that thing of comfort leads to stagnation, and adversity leads to strength or courage or whatever it is, loyalty and all those good things. They have to come out of badness, because everything comes out of badness, because the ground is cursed and so are we before we've got Jesus. Either way, I don't know how to land that plane. I feel like I just did.